Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Today, we're going to be going over the complex road design with CTC corridor tools. These productivity tools are an add-on to the Civil 3D suite from CTC software. My name is Alex Howlett. I'm an account manager here at SolidCAD. Today, I'm joined by Colin Gadet, who is one of our technical consultants. He will be taking you through today's webinar. Colin and myself work to help Civil 3D users improve their day-to-day work through better practices with the use of our add-on tools. These tools ease time spent on repetitive tasks, rework, and they reduce human error. They speed up both simple and complex processes, giving you more time to take on more, or finally room to work on that passion project, or maybe take some vacation days. Colin specializes in civil infrastructure and is an expert in Bluebeam and its civil engineering implementations. So for today's agenda, I'm going to start by briefly introducing SolidCAD and CTC, who we are, what we do, and then Colin's going to take over the show and go over the native corridor tools, and then go over a more efficient workflow utilizing CTC Corridor Mapper. So a bit about what we do. For over 25 years, SolidCAD has been one of the leading Autodesk Platinum partners in Canada, and the only Canadian-based Platinum partner for Autodesk and Bluebeam, and we are also an exclusive CTC provider here in Canada. Our mission is to provide and deliver technology solutions and training that improve our clients' processes, workflows, and interoperability. So what it means to be a Platinum partner is that we are operating at the highest level in our respective partner programs, serves as a message that SolidCAD provides top service and industry expertise and delivers that value to our customers. As well as expertise and certifications, to become and remain a Platinum partner, we must maintain a certain number of clients, have authorized Autodesk training, and techs and facilities all across Canada. So right now, we're only representing part of Canada, just the center of the world, Toronto. And with respect to our training, our facilities are located across the country. We employ one of the largest teams in the industry with experts all across Canada. They support all Canadian time zones and in both official languages. The average tech on our team has over 15 years of industry experience. Of course, everything is being offered virtually now. We quickly pivoted to be able to support our clients. SolidCAD specializes in technology that supports a multitude of industries, including architecture, engineering, construction, manufacturing, and my focus, civil infrastructure. Please note that we are software agnostic. So that means we can provide full software solutions. We've partnered with leading software developers such as CTC, which means we have a deep portfolio to pull from to support our customers. Setting us aside from all other service providers is our large range of service offerings. We are much more than just a software reseller. We provide our customers with support, which answers those why questions, training and consulting to answer those how questions. And we host events like this one, workshops, boot camps, networking events, and other webinars to educate our customers and prepare their business as technology changes. And then this brings us to CTC software. CTC software is at the forefront of advanced productivity tools and a worldwide leader in BIM technology. They're a member of the Autodesk Developer Network and have been making add-ons for Revit and Civil 3D since 2010. These tools are used by more than 40,000 users globally and more than 75% of the top firms in the US alone. SolidCAD is committed to providing our clients with industry-leading solutions such as CTC, and we're excited to show you how we can help with your your corridor mapping. So I'm going to hand this over to Colin now.
Awesome.
Stop my sharing.
And I will steal it from you here. Can you see my screen all right there?
Yeah.
Alex? Excellent. Perfect. So I'm going to jump. This is kind of the next slide in this, just explaining what we're looking at in terms of CTC software offerings for Civil 3D. So we've got kind of two suites of tools that we're looking at. And I briefly mentioned this all at the start just to kind of give us some context in the world of it. So we've got the manager suite down here in blue. And this has to do with more of your kind of template management and standards control when it comes to layers and some more of those kind of Excel-like interfaces and things like that. But the suite that we're going to talk about today is the Sim Project Suite. This is all of your kind of day-to-day tasks, has everything from survey to pipe tools to grading tools, but obviously we're going to focus in on some of the, or all of the corridor tools today. And this is the stuff that you're going to see a lot of ROI coming out of your project, being able to get these tedious tasks done a heck of a lot faster, just through use of these tools and having these tools kind of reach in and manipulate the different components of Civil 3D. Worth noting, none of these tools make anything proprietary. All of these tools just kind of reach their fingers into Civil 3D and offer you a more dynamic way or a more efficient way to deal with Civil 3D objects or to create Civil 3D objects. There's nothing proprietary about them. Other people can still use the drawings that you have used CTC tools on. They just have to do it slower. All that to say, let's get into some corridor target mapping. And when we're talking about corridors, I always like to start off at ground zero, talking about corridors as a whole. What creates them? Well, if we think about what creates them, we obviously need a baseline, both vertical and horizontal. So we've got our horizontal baseline being an alignment. Then we've got our vertical baseline being ideally a design profile. And then we've got a typical cross section that's going to run down those in different regions. And that typical cross section is your assembly. Now, what happens when you have an assembly that doesn't quite fit in certain areas? Well, we end up having to create another assembly that has a sidewalk for these 20 meters or has a driveway for these 3 meters or whatever the case. And we end up running into these issues where we develop a ton of different assemblies. Now, this is a fairly simplistic way to do it. There are more efficient ways to create assemblies because this offers kind of pretty clunky transitions between all of these regions, and you're left with a corridor that's got, I don't know, north of 15 to 20 regions. It drastically decreases the performance of your drawing, having that many regions and everything else. So alternatively, we have these subassemblies, these conditional subassemblies. What these allow you to do, there's two different types. There are the cut or fill, dictating what happens in a cut situation when you are sitting below the existing ground, or what happens in a fill situation when your baseline is sitting above the existing ground. That's one conditional assembly. The other one is a horizontal target, a found or not found horizontal target assembly, and that's the one that we're going to kind of manipulate today. What these allow you to do, though, is these simple sub-assemblies allow you to have a variety or consolidate a variety of these different assemblies that we have here for the different situations into one single assembly that's got a couple different branches with different options involved in it. So that's what we're going to try and work with today. And before I get too much further in our presentation, I guess we forgot to mention, if you guys have any questions at all, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A panel rather. And we'll address all of those at the end of the presentation as well. Getting into it though, the other kind of sore point though when it gets to corridors as a whole is getting into the targets. So your targeting and things like that can get pretty clunky because it's 3 dialog boxes deep through your corridor properties. You can assign things by individual layers or individual selection, but those layers don't remain dynamic. So if other stuff gets added to those layers, Civil 3D natively doesn't recognize that more things need to be targeted and things like that. So it's still fairly time consuming, and we have to go and do updates and iterations manually with some of these corridor target mapping. What CTC's got instead is our corridor mapper tool. So this guy right in the middle here, we'll take a look at the corridor splitter and merger and corridor cleanup, but Those are fairly simple and straightforward tools that you can't make an entire webinar about. What Corridor Mapper does is it allows you to get all of your targeting information in one single dialog box. We can filter with a variety more options, including filtering by styles and dynamic layer targeting and things like that. We can even target XREFs, and we'll talk about how we can actually mirror the targeting of another subassembly that's in our corridor. Now, all of this is available with these Sim Project Suite. It's available for the last 5 versions. So as I switch over back into Civil 3D, I could be using version, oops, let's go here. I could be using version 2018, and I would still have access to this tool set and have the ability to use all of these things in here. Now in Civil 3D, we're going to get into corridor targeting. Now this is just a quick example of a corridor that's already targeted, because I'd like to show you really quickly the splitter and merger. This is all one corridor currently. Now if I get into this in the corridor properties, this could be one huge mess. And I don't want to have to reproduce this if we realize that, hey, we ran out of budget this year and this portion of it is actually going to be completed in phase 2 next year. Well, instead of having to delete and then recreate this in a separate corridor for establishing quantities and surfaces and things like that, we can simply use corridor splitter. You can select corridor splitter. It asks you to pick a corridor and then gives you options to either split off individual, or I can press enter and I get an entire list of all of the different baselines and regions. And with that, I'm able to come in here and split off phase 2. And luckily I have most of these named right here. So I can scroll down and divvy this up via regions. It's going to copy baselines. It's going to copy and maintain all of the dependent objects. So when I'm talking about dependent objects, we're talking about surfaces that are created from this or other things like that. And once you've separated all of this out, we can name each one of these, click OK, and it can separate all of this out for us. Merger does the exact opposite. We pick 2 corridors, it will merge those dependent objects as well. It'll take a couple seconds, but this is something that's not available in native Civil 3D. We can't simply split a corridor into 2 separate corridors. Now, if I take a look, I've got 2 corridor surfaces for 1 and 2, and everything already in there. The other side of this is sometimes these get pretty cluttered. For example, this is what we're going to end up creating by the end of this, is we're going to use this subdivision and create all of this out. Sometimes maybe we don't know what all of this targeting is happening in here, and we'd rather just start from scratch and reestablish everything on our own. Corridor cleanup allows you to do that. Select a corridor and it allows you to kind of, I call this kind of the nuke button on all of the targeting. You're able to specify specific regions or baselines to remove targeting from, or specific targets altogether, be it the slope and elevations versus the width and offsets or surfaces. Let's just nuke it all and see what happens here. And we can eliminate all of that targeting in there. Now, I'm not saying this is something everybody needs every single day. And actually that's why it's a lighter green colored tool. Meaning that this one's actually free. You don't have to purchase the suite. It sticks around after your trial runs out, and you get to keep that tool, as well as the part swapper tool and a couple little survey unique tools there. But it nukes all of the targeting in my corridor. Now, that was the completed version. Let's jump in here and take a look at what we're going to create And we're going to develop one corridor for this entire 3-street subdivision using only 3 assemblies. Now, if I zoom in here, I could have done this with simply 2 assemblies. All I need is a curb return assembly and a road assembly, because the only difference between these two is the lane width right here. Oops. This one here has a 4.5 lane width, and this one here has a 4.75, I believe. Oh, actually, I think it's the sidewalk that's different. My bad. But we're still able to use targeting to stretch those out slightly differently. Now, if I zoom in on this assembly, I've got these conditional subassemblies, and if I grab them, this is one point that I always like to hammer home is organization when it comes to your assemblies, your corridors, and all of this stuff. Everything Civil 3D really, organization is paramount. So I didn't just drop these in here as conditional horizontal subassembly. I named them with the intention of what I'm looking for here. So this is my corridor target, CT, and I'm looking for an intersection. So I'm able to use this as for my intersections. If I find a simple polyline, and actually I've got this guy down here. If I find a simple polyline like this, it's going to remove the curb and the sidewalk and everything and allow me to develop an intersection in there. Same thing here. If it doesn't find that, then it's looking for the next thing. Target not found, target found. And in this case, I've named it again. We're looking for driveways. So it's actually looking for, on the right side, it's looking for these simple little driveway polylines dictating that I'm going to need a drop curb and things like that. And then based on what's happening in each one of these, you're going to end up with a different scenario. Think of this as kind of a branches of possibilities in this assembly. If there isn't an intersection, but there is a driveway, I'm going to be left with a drop curb, an apron carrying through. If there isn't an intersection, but there isn't a driveway, I'm going to be left with a full curb, a boulevard, and a sidewalk. So let's take a look at some of this. That's all native Civil 3D right now. What we're going to do is use some native tools to manipulate frequencies and develop regions, but all of our targeting is going to happen inside of the setup targets for Corridor Mapper. Let's open that up and we'll start to apply targets to this very first baseline and region for the corridor. So all I've done is, just to save some time, added that in here, and I've developed some offset alignments and things like that. Now, in Corridor Mapper, we have the ability to pick the different corridors and then divide up what we're looking for in terms of targets based off of surfaces, width and offset, or slope and elevation. And within here, I can refine this search based off of the different subassemblies, based off of the different baselines that I'd like, and based off of the regions if I needed to as well. But remember, the goal is to reduce the number of regions using these horizontal conditional subassemblies. Now, I've actually mapped some of this out already on this first initial one. So with one single region in here, I've taken my driveway left and my driveway right, and we can see that I've actually grabbed these via layer. So I've selected a layer. I can also filter out those layers using my filtering options here. And it gives me the option to pick whether I want polylines, feature lines, alignments, 3D polylines, or all of the above. So I've filtered all of this out here. Let's click OK to start. And just like that, it's already found 58. And I know this isn't that impressive because this is already baked in. But what we're going to do is develop even more on top of this. So let's zoom in and take a look here. We've got some drop curbs. It's recognized there's an intersection over here using the intersection polylines. And it's also grabbed some more intersections here. So let's maybe add some baselines to this corridor and get a little bit more efficient here. Well, actually, we've added the baselines already for time's sake. Let's add some regions. So I'll come in here and select this region and develop a curb return right here. Now it gives you the option to do targeting. We're going to do all of our targeting inside of Corridor Mapper. There we go. We've added 2 there. Just going to click enter and then enter to re-execute. Pick my baseline, pick the starting point, and pick the ending point of that region. And I've already got my curb return assembly already picked. Select one, the start of the curb return, snap to the end of the curb return, and keep going. And we'll do a couple more up here. 1. And this time I'm just going to name this one slightly differently. We'll call this Street 3, 1 to name my regions. And I like naming my regions so that I can tell them a little bit apart when I'm looking in my targeting options. Select here, carry along. Come on, Civil 3D. And we'll go to there. 3-1, let's go 3-2. Okay. Perfect. Now, the first thing I see about these, actually, I'll add one more baseline here just to keep things moving. Because we're going to add for Street 3 as well. I'll put it over here. Assembly name, next counter for the name. Looks good. And we'll use that secondary road. Click OK, and I don't need it. Any of the targeting. Now, the first thing I see about all of these regions, my frequencies are junk. None of these look like proper rounded corners. So the fast way to fix that is to create all of these regions right off the hop, then come in here, edit the frequencies on 1, edit my curves, so that goes to 1, edit these guys, so maybe that goes to 5. And that looks pretty nice in terms of frequency. Now let's come up here and match the parameters for the regions. I'll select the region that I like, and then I'll match that to this one and all of the others. 1, 2, and I can even match it to 3, 4, and Street 3 right here. And we can apply all of this. Oh dear. We used the wrong. It accidentally swapped to the wrong assembly. Let's put that back. But it'll still keep the frequencies for us. Perfect. Now, these don't look that great. Let's come in here and address the targeting to make these intersections work. Now, if I take a look at these intersections, I need to target the offset alignment on Street 1 right here. And I also need the center line alignment along Street 2 and along Street 3 up at the top there. So let's apply those sets of targeting. I'll go Corridor Mapper and select my corridor. Now I've got a lot more stuff in here now, but I know that all of those intersections are using my curb return. And not only that, I'm not looking for the driveway right option. I'm looking for the lane option. So lane, curb return, and this shows up in the right place here. I can select this one subassembly, and I can apply layers. So I'm going to search for center line of street 2. And that's going to apply a target right here. If I select this total targets, it's going to show me what it's actually grabbed. It's grabbed alignment street 2 for a width and offset target. That's excellent. Now I can continue to add more though. So I could maybe go to styles, and I know that I've got an offset alignment style right there. So I could check that off, and now I've got 3. I've got my left and I've got my right alignments for street 1. Now that's okay. Now that I've got that all set up for one of these curb returns, I can use the mirroring options by grabbing the other ones. I'll shift select. And instead of using reference, I'm going to use mirror for these 3. Then it gives me the option of what other subassembly would I like to mirror. And what this does is anytime I were to change any of the targeting that happens on this subassembly right here, it's going to reflect that on all of the other ones. Notice they don't have any targets right now, but I can come up here and mirror curb return 3. I'll check that, and I immediately get all 3 targets. Now that's one option. The other option is I can shift select and grab both of these ones for street 3. I can apply the offset and then go search those layers to get center line for street 3 right here. Let's click OK. It's going to tell me that now I have 76 targets in here. And let's look at what we've created so far. Awesome. Now, I'm still messing up right here. I'd like this to tie into my edge of right of way. And notice that this is sitting on CT row. What's interesting with that is if I go back into my corridor mapper, select my corridors, if the layer name matches my subassembly name, I can simply select and shift select to grab all of these ones here. I don't even have to find that layer. I just click Automap, and it's going to add those targets to every single one. What exact targets did I add though? Well, if I click right here, I can see that I've added 3 polylines. So because I took the time at the start to rename all of my subassemblies to match the layers, I've gotten a lot faster of a result. I've just added another 50 targets. I'm going to click OK. It's going to update all of these. And now it's tied right to the edge of right of way here. Now, I have a sidewalk coming in here and it ends. The reality is it's going to be a lot more difficult for me to map this in the corridor than it is for me to simply map it with maybe feature lines when it comes to the drop curbs and tactile plates and mapping out of the sidewalk in these curb returns. So instead, what I might do is just come up to my curb return down here, grab this subassembly, and I can choose to omit the link here, meaning that it's not going to create the surface in that area. So I don't have to fight with the surface in that area. It just won't add it. If I select yes, and then come over here and rebuild my corridor, it's going to omit the link anytime that it's using that section. So now I can just simply map this with feature lines in here as to where the sidewalk needs to go. This I find is a lot easier to go through. Now let's focus up here a little bit more. Looks like I've got some things working up here, but I don't have everything working. So I'll go into my corridor mapper. I'd like to add those drop curbs. And instead of kind of fighting through the clutter here of all of the different subassemblies, I know that I just want to work on the baseline street 3. I'm just going to work on street 3. So I'll take that. And then I can come up here and find my driveway left and filter to my corridor targeting layers, CT underscore. And I can find my driveway left for street 3. I automatically just added 10 right there. We'll do that for the same with right. We'll add that in there and click OK. I've added another couple targets. It gives me that summary, and we're going to rebuild that corridor. Now, let's take a look at a cul-de-sac. Now, with this cul-de-sac right here, and I'm going to move fairly quickly because we're a little bit rushed on time. I've got an alignment. I've also got a profile. If I zoom out here, the cul-de-sac profile. It's very simple. It just peaks at the furthest point to make sure that there's flow around the curb out towards the street. What we need to do is grab this and apply a region around the edge of travelway here. So I'm going to add a region along the edge of travelway because I've already added that alignment and profile as a baseline. I'm going to start from 0 and go all the way to right there. I'm going to give this the curb return, and we're going to click OK. Now there's a couple things of targeting that we could do. We're not going to worry about that yet. And wow, that does not look good. But we've already fixed some of this in the rest of the corridor, right? So first things first, let's get the frequency under wraps. Let's maybe put 4 for the straight lines and maybe 1 for the tangents, or for the curves rather. And that's going to start to look a little bit better already. Nice. Then we can come in here and we need to start applying some targeting. So let's go to our corridor mapper, grab the corridor and open up and just filter to that specific baseline where I've got my lane right here named lane right. And I need this to pick the center line. So I need that to pick the center line of street 3 as it comes in. So we're going to click CLN to filter my layers out. And I'll pick CLN street 3 right here. Check that off. It recognizes one alignment and we're good to go. Couple more things. Got that CT row again. So why don't I shift select and I can just auto map this. I know that my layer matches what was going on there. Now, not only that, I've also got these driveway rights. So let's shift select and add the driveway right. Oh, CT underscore. And we've got driveway right, street 3. Perfect. That's the one I'm looking for. Let's click OK. We've added another bunch of targets here. And we've developed this out. And it's also respected every time that it sees one of these polylines, it's added in the apron for us. The rest of this, it's left because it is still mimicking. It's leaving that feature line alone, or sorry, it's leaving that link alone. Now, the beauty with this targeting though is if we've already targeted things, we have the option to just auto map targets or update the target layers and things like that that we've got already. So let's maybe add some driveways around the last of this just to finish off. And I'm going to do that sort of unique way here. I'm going to grab this based off of, come here. Let's go shift select endpoint. We're going to grab it based off of an array right here.
Headphones just died. Let's continue on here. Now, with that array, we could put this back to maybe 30 between everyone. Okay, that didn't quite do it. So if I stretch this out, I'm running into some issues. So let's try maybe 28. Well, that looks good. It's falling between each of the property lines. Let's do that. All I have to do is just make sure that this isn't annotated, so it's leaving me with a bunch of copies in the right place of that polyline. We'll close and click OK. And now I've got a whole bunch more target options in here, all sitting on the correct layer. So all that would leave me to do is I just have to update those targets along the cul-de-sac baseline. So I'll come here, I'll select Automap targets. I'll select the corridor. It's going to tell me, hey, we found a couple more. Let's update these. And then it's going to process that out, find the additional polylines that I've added, and add them in as new drop curves. So Corridor Mapper requires you to be a little bit more organized with your assemblies, but I would argue that that's a good thing. We're able to do things with, in this case, we had one region for each road and one region for each curb return. It makes it a lot easier. And now we're just left with 2 or 3 different assemblies and using the targeting to get our transitions between different variations, whether there's a driveway left or a driveway right. We're able to define all of that using targeting, and it's going to leave us with a lot nicer transition periods in between those different scenarios. So that's some of what this tool can do, or most of what this tool can do. And the beauty of it, like I said, is this is available in the last 5 versions. So 2018, 19, 20, 21, and 22 all can use this tool to manipulate your corridors. So at this point, I'm going to pop back to the PowerPoint because that is the end of my presentation. So if you don't already, we've got some great content that we put out. I'd recommend you guys checking that out on YouTube specifically, but more and more on Facebook and Instagram and everything else like that. But feel free to reach out. At this point, I'd like to pass it off to Alex and see, do we have any questions?
No questions right now. I'll give it a minute in case someone has, or someone, if people have questions. Yeah, and then I'll take this opportunity to invite everyone to next week's CTC webinar. It looks like it's going to be civil 3D stripping surfaces and earthwork calculations. And then we're going to take a break for the holidays, and then we come back at it January 11th. And that will be water main design in civil 3D pipe networks with a pipe designer. So we do have, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 more loaded in this series. And then there's 4 that are scheduled. So I encourage everyone to kind of jump on those, get registered. If you are registered, then you'll get access to the recordings after, as well as this one. Yeah, and then if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to one of us, both of us, or pop them in the Q&A section right now. We can take a look at those. But yeah, if there's no questions right now, I think we're good, Colin.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Bye.